Yeah, good morning to you, dear viewers. I'm with you again today. This is the fifth Sunday. I apologize to you for not being on air last week, but I did say that we're going to be on this week. And today I'm here with you because today we'll be looking at the anniversary. And when I speak about anniversary, I'm talking about the 64th anniversary of the PNC, People's National Congress. And looking back, this is their anniversary month, the 5th of October. They came into being. And as such, we would like to reflect on the journey. And helping me to reflect on this journey is none other than the chairperson of the Forbes Burnham Foundation, Mr. Vincent Alexander, who is with me in the studio today. You know, there are so many things that have happened over the years, and we think it's only opportune that we focus on the anniversary of the PNC. I should say to you that the part of our duty as a non-governmental agency, that is the Forbes Burnham Foundation, is that we are programmed to make sure that we keep the legacy of Forbes Burnham alive. And the PNC, obviously, is one of his legacy. So today we'll be looking at that, and I want to say straight up front, Mr. Alexander, that the PNC, what is it that led to the formation of the PNC?
Thank you very much, Clayton. Morning to the viewers out there. As Clayton has said, the Forbes Burnham Foundation is dedicated to the maintenance of the legacy of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. Undoubtedly, the People's National Congress, currently the People's National Congress Reform, is an integral part of, in fact, a core part of that legacy, and therefore we of the Burnham Foundation find it necessary from time to time to review where they are at, because our task is to maintain that legacy. Now, the People's National Congress Reform acquired that name in 1957. But the very birthing of the People's National Congress may be taken back to 1955, when there was a split in the People's Progressive Party. And out of that split emerged what was then called the Jagan faction of the People's Progressive Party and the Burnham faction of the People's Progressive Party. So in some regards, the People's National Congress has its origin in the PPP insofar as it is the membership and the leadership of the PPP that was split and led to the formation of the People's National Congress. Now, interestingly, whenever reference is being made to the PPP, very often there is an attempt to deny that, in fact, Burnham was a founder of the People's Progressive Party. You know, recently, Barra Jaglio was on a radio program in Ghana. And in that radio program, he said that Burnham was invited to join the PPP. Now, that is not altogether correct. You can't be invited to join something that does not as yet exist. And the existence of the PPP coincides with Burnham becoming the first chairman of the People's Progressive Party. So that in fact he's not one who was merely invited to join. He was invited to join with Chedi, but they collectively formed the People's Progressive Party, and he emerged as the first chairperson of that party. At that time, Chedi had already been a parliamentarian, and therefore was looked upon as the leader of the parliamentary group. And I'm saying this because this is an issue that has to do with the split. He was leader of the parliamentary group. He had already been a parliamentarian prior to Burnham, had contested elections prior and won a constituency seat, and therefore he was considered as leader of the parliamentary group. But what occurred at the Congress in 1955 was that an executive member of the party suggested that since Burnham was the chairperson of the party, then he should be considered to be the leader of the party. There was no position of leader as such. But he was saying if this guy is the elected chairperson, which is the highest office in the party, then for all intents and purposes, he is the leader and we should be so recognized. It is at that point that the contestation for leader occurred that led to the split, because in fact the Congress which was convened that time was moving in the direction of confirming Burnham as the leader. Now you know there are those who argue that it is Burnham's ambition that caused the problem in all of that. And there are others who argue that the split had a lot to do with ethnicity. And so that too needs to be clarified. The fact of the matter is that not only was there the question of Burnham being the chairman and therefore being eligible to be the leader, but there were some differences as well, which were largely ideological differences. I would put it that Cheddi Jagan was more doctrinaire, more left-wing in a sense than Burnham was, more orthodox Marxist than Burnham was, and Burnham was more middle-in, social democrat rather than a communist. And that is manifest in the split because the split did not take racial lines. Did not take racial lines. There were people of African descent who remained with Cheddi. Yusuf Quran remained with Cheddi, for example, at that time. Rory Westmus remained with Cheddi. Aston Chase remained with Cheddi, so that you had a substantial number of African leaders who remained with Cheddi. But at the same time, those who went with Burnham also included a significant number of Indian leaders, Lachman Singh and others. So the split was not itself based on ethnicity. It was based on ideological disposition. But I think we should also note that the formation of the party took into consideration the ethnic composition of Guyana and the need for ethnic unity. And it's against that background that before the party was formed, that it was suggested that Burnham be invited into the process of formation. In prospecting, at one time there was the idea that Ashton Chase probably could be the co-leader with Cheddi, but apparently Ashton Chase turned that down. Burnham was about to had just graduated, and in fact a Jamaican made a recommendation of Burnham becoming one of the founders of the party based on his ideological disposition and his leadership skills that were demonstrated when he was in London as a student. So he actually came back home to join with Cheddi, and this demonstrated a recognition of the ethnic composition of the society and the need for the ethnic groups to work together. This is a very important point for us to note because that issue remains with us. So that the party came out of the Burnhamite faction, and in 1957 actually changed its name or took on the name the People's National Congress. So that this year the People's National Congress celebrated its 64th anniversary as a party, but there is that precursor, that period of 1955 to 1957, when in terms of an organic body, the People's National Congress had already been birthed, but it gained its name and became officially the People's National Congress in 1957, coming out of the split in 1955, and demonstrated by virtue of those who left the PPP, that this was not a racial matter. It was a matter of ideology to a very large extent. It was not a matter of merely an ambition of Burnham, and what is it to be ambitious anyhow? But it had to do with the fact that there was a field in the party that Burnham should be the leader of the party, given that he was the first chairman, and Chedi was really the leader of the parliamentary group, because his being in parliament predated the formation of the People's Progressive Party. So here we have it, the People's National Congress being formed in 1957, coming out of an organic existence between 1955 and 1957, after the split and the emergence of what was referred to as the Burnhamite faction. So clearly, the question of ideology was critical at that time, and you could see it in terms of those who came with Burnham were those who were more moderate, and those who stayed with Reagan were those who were more left-wing. But in addition to that, it was a clear view of someone, in fact, who did not come with Burnham, that Burnham should have been declared the leader because he was the first chairperson of the People's Progressive Party. Hence the board.
All right, Vincent, I do like that analysis that you're